everybody. Welcome back to another episode from the Fourth Line. My name's Emma, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Marcie, who's
Hello.
eating.
It's been a bit of a chaotic evening.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, it has been. We can say that for sure. I think overall, it's been a pretty, I don't even want to say chaotic day, because, like, nothing really happened news-wise. But I mean, I guess the Leafs did win technically today, because the game ended at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
It was 5:45, I think, when it ended for me. Me and my friend did them very much pass out, and then I woke up at 3 p.m. and I'd missed all my lectures. So
Yeah,
I'm mad at the Leafs.
Hey, at least they won. Could you imagine if you stayed up that late and they actually like lost?
No, because that's why I kind of don't want to watch tonight.
Very real possibility. And we will talk about the Leafs and the Golden Knights in a little bit. But Leafs and Coyotes, we'll do a little fun little recap. Samsonov gets to start, which I think, you know what? I'm like, sure. Okay, give it to Samsonov. I'm just thinking, like, if you were facing a back-to-back, so you have to use both of your goalies in a hypothetical situation, and you're going to go for starting Samsonov against the Coyotes and Jones against the Golden Knights, it's a little bit... I have to question the decision. It's a choice for sure. It's a choice for sure. I mean, Samsonov had a pretty good game. I think it... yeah. Also as well, Sheldon Keefe made some changes to the lineup, because actually, for once, all of the forwards are able to play.
It's a miracle.
So the third, like, it looked all pretty standard, except John Dubas was centering the third line with McMahon and Robertson on his wing. You know what? Honestly, I loved that line. I think that third line worked, obviously, because they scored technically three times. Robertson's goal did get called back for a Max Lajoie offside, but not his fault. Honestly, the offside, I don't even know how, like, the offside dictated, like, any change to the play, because I don't think Max Lajoie touched the puck.
No.
Okay, here's what I'm suggesting, and maybe this can reduce the number of goals that get called back from offside. Maybe, like, you could call me stupid, but, like, and maybe you're like, Emma, you just don't know, like, how hockey works, and, like, actually, it does affect the play that much, enough to warrant calling a goal back. But, like, if a player is offside and they don't touch the puck before the goal, like, they don't touch the puck, like, puck enters the zone, and the player who's offside never touches the puck until it goes into the net, like, until the goal happens, essentially, like, have no impact. Why don't we just, like, not call that back? Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
if they don't do anything that, like, changes the play and, like, actually has an impact on the goal being scored, why bother? Because Nick Robertson could have had a goal.
He could have had a goal.
I could have been very, very happy.
Oh, absolutely. No. The way I, like, then, you know, didn't want to get excited about, like, I don't know. I'm just, like, thinking, like, if you're going to call back one goal, you know, it could be like that Leafs Devils game where you got called, where, like, 3 of them called back, and they were booing. Do you remember that game? What a game that was. I think that was against New Jersey, right? Yeah. Last season. Yeah. So. Yeah. Only in New Jersey. Only in New Jersey. Yeah, and then, of course, obviously the biggest story of the night, Austin Matthews scores number 50 of the season. There's a couple of stats we can read off about Austin Matthews scoring 50. There's a list of them. Again, reminder, it's like every other game, you know, a Leafs goal, like, is breaking some sort of record, and you're like, oh, this is just normal. But you have to remember, like, there was a time when the Leafs were really, really bad. And we have to go back to, like, the, like, 15-16 season. So the season that led to the Leafs getting Austin Matthews, in theory, because they got the first overall pick, because they were so bad that they were last in the league. The leading goal scorer for for the team that season was P.A. Parento, who only played that 1 year with the Leafs. That was the only season he played with the Leafs organization. And he scored 20 goals that year.
Oh, it's tragic.
Austin Matthews, I think, hit 20 goals back in November?
I think so. That sounds about right.
Right? That sounds about right. Like if I could have done, if I wanted to bring this up, I could have done like the counting myself and counted this. But yeah. Also, you have to think about it. It's not like, Austin Matthews is getting any cheap goals. Like he hasn't scored an empty netter
really
at all this season. Right? Like he hasn't, no empty netters. So just some stats about Austin Matthews and the incredible, crazy goal scoring pace that we've seen from him. He joins Rick Vave as the only Leafs player to ever have 2 50-plus goal seasons. Fastest U.S.-born skater to hit 50 goals. You know who he's beating to that record? Himself.
Oh, God.
He is beating himself. 50 goals and 53. I also was seeing 54. 54 games. Fastest since Lemieux's 50 and 50. Because
Jesus.
Yeah. Like I can just keep listing off the stats. Hold on.
There's endless stuff.
We have more. Like I have more to share.
Oh my God.
Here we go. There's a fun graphic. Here we go. Here we go. Where is it? This one's from via Nick Barden. This is a crazy one because also Bobby McMahon, we didn't even mention the Bobby McMahon goal to open the score.
Bobby McMahon!
7 goals in 5 games for Bobby McMahon. He's on an absolute heater. One of Austin Matthews or Bobby McMahon have scored in each of the Maple Leafs' last 17 games. They've combined for 17 goals in 7 games, and that's not including the William Nylander goals, where it's like something where it's like that trio of guys for the Leafs has scored more goals in the same, like in the last 7 games as every single NHL team has done in their last 7 games, which is crazy.
Insane.
Craziness.
Not real.
It's not. It's like it's actually the most ridiculous thing in the entire world to think about. I did some quick math just to last night, just to put into perspective the Leafs, not Leafs, but Austin Matthews, his scoring rate and how crazy it is. Now, mind you, very rudimentary statistics. I was not going for anything crazy. I did not. But I calculated, so what I did, because I was just curious. I was like, so he's on a crazy scoring pace right now over his career. Because also as well, Austin Matthews scores 2 goals in this game. So he reaches his career 350th career goal, right? And so I was like, okay, so what numbers could we potentially be seeing from him over the course of his entire career? Now, to draw a comparison, because this always happens, is I'm going to take Ovechkin, because whenever there's a record that Austin Matthews breaks, it's usually one of it's like, oh, the last player to do this was Alexander Ovechkin in 2007. But so what I did is I calculated his scoring rate, which is just 350 divided by 535. Gave me that scoring rate, and then I multiplied it, because that just gives me his goals per game, which is a scoring base. And I multiplied it by the number of games that Alexander Ovechkin currently has played. Now, of course, we're dealing with an active player, and, you know, Ovechkin could go on to play, what, 1 or 2 more seasons? Who knows? Or he'll just, you know, become Jaromir Jagr and play until he's 50. Who knows? Yeah. But he's like around the 1,348 mark, right? Multiply the scoring pace and that game number. Now, of course, Austin Matthews may not play that many games. You kind of hope that he plays close to that, you know, at least that many games. And of course, obviously as well, you have to, like, this doesn't take into factor the fact, like, he could slow down as he gets older, because that's just what happens when people get older as players. But that number that I got is 914.5 goals. So rounded up to 915, because why not? We're nice here. That blows Wayne Gretzky's record out of the water. And that's using a game total of a player who is not yet retired. Like, I'm just being like, that also as well, like, before you say, oh, well, like, you know, Austin Matthews has had a couple of reduced seasons due to whatever injury or COVID or whatever. So has Alexander Ovechkin. He's played through what? Not 1, but 2 lockout seasons. Right? So he's missing 2 full seasons, essentially, of NHL numbers, because, you know, going over to Russia and playing a season there during the lockout is not NHL stats. Like, they don't go towards the NHL stats. But that's just a crazy thing to kind of, like, visualize, where you're like, and he could be even better. Like, we don't know, right? Like, we don't know, like, okay, whatever, this year, this year he breaks 70. What if next year he breaks 80? So you could almost have fun with this and could be like, could Austin Matthews score 1,000 goals? Is that a crazy... Again, this is one of those things where I could say it and then be like, Emma, you're an idiot. But is that a real...
It's a possibility.
Is that a possibility that we could be seeing?
I think if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be him.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Like, there's no one else who's going to come close.
No
Austin
way.
Matthews, you are not real. Like, what?
Also, yeah, so I did the math. Austin Matthews passed 20 goals against in the 25th game that he played.
Holy shit.
In which the Leafs and that was in December, like December 11th. So yeah. The Leafs are a good team. Like, you have to think about the fact of, like, the Leafs, like, if they didn't get that stretch of bad games from Samsonov, and, you know, maybe they had a little bit better, you know, defending, you know, their blue line was slightly better at the start of the season. Think about how much higher in the standings they'd be. They're ranked 10th in the league right now. They're still in a playoff position, but just, like, anyway, like, Austin Matthews is an animal of a man. It's not real.
He's genuinely not real.
Yeah. Leafs also as well. I do want to point this out. Alex, of course, Leafs were playing against the Arizona Coyotes. Of course, playing against former Leaf, Mr. Harvard himself, Alexander Kerfoot. And I do want to say, I think Kerfoot was definitely, I think he, like, his plus minus for that game probably was in the negatives. I didn't look at it, but it was like he did I'm trying to, like, I do remember, because he was on the ice for Austin Matthews' 50th goal. He was on the ice for the 3-on-5 power play goal. By the way, ironically enough, also as well, he was the only forward on the ice for that 5-on-3 for Arizona, which I think is just cruel to be putting him out against his his former team's power play for a 5-on-3 in which there was 5 forwards on the ice for the Leafs. Max Domi, Tavares, Marner, Matthews, and Nylander were all on the ice for that 5-on-3, which is ridiculous. They had the Arizona Coyotes in an absolute spin cycle.
Oh yeah, like there was no saving anyone. Yeah,
Kerfoot was -1 on the night. He did have 1 assist.
He did. Well, no goal though.
No goal, but point's a point. It did almost look for like a second like it was his goal, but it was a deflection. Which is usually his thing. William Nylander also scores his 30th goal of the season. Hats off. He's also having a crazy heater of a year as well. He's on a crazy pace. I think, on a pace for a career best season.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then the second period for the Leafs, everything sort of like falls apart. They allow 3 goals in that span. All of them just coming off of like just mistakes. The first goal, Benoit just didn't quite get the clear out of the Leaf zone, which I think maybe, I don't know, that's probably one of the very few mistakes that we see Simon Benoit make in the defensive, in his own zone, for sure. Like he doesn't make those sorts of mistakes very often, or at least we don't see them. They're not that noticeable to the point where they result in a goal, but at the end of the day, does it matter? No. Logan Cooley goes into the boards awkwardly after a battle for the puck with Liljegren. He leaves the game. He comes back in the third. So right as rain for him, which is probably a little shaken up. Austin Matthews scores his second goal of the game, because of course, and this is, I think this goal, maybe I'm wrong, I just dropped my pen, but this goal, it maybe is his easiest goal of the season. Deflected off his shoulder from like a Marner shot, TJ Brodie assist sort of thing, and I think it maybe is his easiest one of the season. Yeah, because he didn't have to do anything. He just stood there and it bounced off him, and he's like, "Oh, I got a goal."
The goals, he literally just attracts goals at this point.
I think also, like, if you're good, you're lucky, right? And Austin Matthews very obviously is good, so very obviously is going to get lucky. Arizona scores another one. Nylander, second of the night, with a breakaway out of the box. Now his reaction,
beautiful.
It's a beautiful goal. Breakaway out of the box. If his reaction to it, he was like, "Oh, I think." Like afterwards, he was asked about it in the post game by the media, and he was like, he said something along the lines of, "Oh, I knew, like, sitting in the box that I was going to get a chance to go for a goal."
This bitch.
And then John Tavares scores one just to seal the deal. His first 5-on-5 goal. Now he's had one even strength. He's had a 4-on-4, but his one 5-on-5 goal in 28 games, which is ridiculous. But yeah, Leafs win 6-3, 5-game streak, win streak for the Leafs. AKA they won every single game of Morgan Riley's suspension. Leafs get Morgan Riley back for tonight's game against the Vegas Golden Knights. And I think what's become, I don't know if you've noticed this as well, is TJ Brodie and Timothy Liljegren is a pairing that works really, really well.
Yeah.
And isn't this something I said like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Literally, I feel like this is something that I said when we were discussing, we were discussing the Leafs blue line, because I feel like that's something that always comes up a topic for us, but on the show, and I think I said, I was like, oh, because TJ Brodie wasn't playing well, I was like, you got to put him with Liljegren and put him on the left.
And look what happens when they listen to her, eh?
Look what happens. It was the same thing as with Sandine, like with Rasmus Sandine, as he was, you know what I mean? Like last season, like you see this well, because like Timothy Liljegren gets the extra responsibility and gets the extra minutes and the extra responsibility that comes with the top pair minutes and plays so much better. And it was the same thing that we saw with Rasmus Sandine last year, where he was getting, more minutes because Morgan Rielly was out and they had to rely on guys like him and guys like Justin Hall and when Mark Giordano was playing like an animal, to get them through that stretch without Morgan Rielly. And you saw just by getting more minutes how much better Rasmus Sandine was playing. And then, he obviously then gets traded by Kyle Dubas at the deadline to make the cap space for that was what, for the Luke Shen trade. So like, and I think this has been an opportunity for the Leafs to really show the depth that they have. That I don't know, but like that I definitely didn't think that they had for sure on the blue line, because
it was starting to look quite very miserable.
Yeah.
And I was starting to just be like, something has to happen. Someone has what? Emma, what?
Oh no, just Leafs posted for Samsonov's birthday, and I'm pretty sure that's a suit pic I've never seen before.
Wait. Maple Leafs, come here. I'll do the. They just no. Oh my god. So I keep clicking on like different notifications that come up. Wait, where did they post it?
Twitter. Where are you looking?
Oh. Sure, I saw a notification come up, and I don't know why I thought it was Instagram. Oh, Sammy!
Yeah.
Oh, he looks so happy.
It's also Ladderson's birthday too, but anyways. Yeah. I think definitely, like, if you're going to commit this season to making a run in the playoffs, what Brad Treliving has to do, and I think his only focus is finding a top pair right defenseman for Morgan Rielly. Yeah. Right? Because if you're running, I don't want to throw out hypothetical names of a top pair right defenseman, because truly I don't think who would be on the trade market, because truly I don't think I know any besides Chris Tanev, because we can't keep talking about Chris Tanev. We've been talking about Chris Tanev since November, it feels like.
Oh my god.
Until he actually is getting off of the plane because he's been traded to Toronto and he's walking into Scotiabank Arena, I do not want to hear about Chris Tanev and the Leafs in relation to each other ever again, because I'm so sick of hearing about it. I'm like, we've been talking about Chris Tanev and the Leafs since November. We're done. We're done. Like, can we stop?
There's only so many conversations we can have about him, and they're all just like on a cycle now. And it's like, we were like, people start talking about, like, we were talking about this like a week ago and the week before that. Like, give it a rest.
I think we were talking about Chris Tanev in one of the first episodes of the show. If I go back to like my notes and stuff, I think we were talking about Chris Tanev in one of the first episodes of the show, and we started the show in November. So
oh my god, was it November?
It was November, yeah, because it was post Sweden was our first episode.
Yeah. Oh, time flies.
Yeah. Zadorov got traded, and I think then we talked about Chris Tanev at some point early on in the show. I feel like I definitely remember talking about it, because I was like, oh, this is, because it was an interesting trade proposition back in November, but now I'm just bored.
Yeah. It's like I need someone to drop a really controversial trade.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I feel like this is going to be a really quiet trade deadline. Less so than last year. Last year it was really, really active. We saw like Tarasenko going to New York. We saw Kane going to New York. We saw we saw a lot of, obviously the Leafs made some moves with Shen and Ryan O'Reilly and Sam Lafferty and Jake McCabe, and we saw a lot of moves going on. It was really active because the gap between the teams that were in playoff contention and the teams that were not was so much bigger. So you had definitive buyers and sellers at the deadline. Yeah. This year, like most teams, unless you're Ottawa, Columbus, Anaheim, San Jose, maybe even Pittsburgh. We'll talk about Pittsburgh a little bit later because Kyle Dubas had a press conference. But unless you're those teams, like you're still in the hunt and you still think that you have a shot at making the playoffs, and you don't want to start selling to almost solidify that you won't, right? Like you still want to, like, at least as well, you want to show the fan base being like, look, we're still competitive. We can still do this, unless you're so far out of it. Like Montreal as well is one of those teams that is just so far out of it that, you know, is labeled as a seller at the deadline. But so I think we're not going to see some big names get moved around or anything like that. I think it's going to be very almost boring. I want to say, like, if you're, boring.
Which is like good for my heart rate, but like bad for us because
it gives us nothing to talk about.
Yeah, we're just like,
gives us nothing to talk about for sure. But I don't know if they're, but anyways, back to what I was talking about. I want to just get through this part about the Leafs blue line and like set up essentially, you know, if Brad Treliving makes the one trade in which in order for this trade also to get done, I'll be fine in giving up a first. Would I want to? No, at the end of the day, you kind of want to hold on to those, especially if you're the Leafs right now in their current prospect pool. But I'm not, you know, you're not giving up most guys on your active roster. I feel like you can't, like, especially if what you're getting in return is a right defenseman. Like you have some guys, some lower tier defensemen who you could potentially offer up, but I don't think you want to take anyone away from the forward group, because you take one of those guys out and you see how quickly that starts to fall apart in terms of long-term competitiveness. Like, you can do it for a game here or there because of injury, but like you're not going to be wanting to trade away a Nick Robertson or a Bobby McMahon or even a Noah Gregor, right? Because like you have to think about who's coming up to fill that spot. And if we look at the forward group of the lines that were for against Arizona, I don't know, like that's kind of what you want to roll with in the playoffs, right? So the person who's coming up is Ryan Reeves.
Yeah.
Don't want that. Like, as much as, you know, even though you're like, well, we have Ryan Reeves for 2 more years after this one. Don't remind me. I know.
Despair.
You also don't want to give up top ranked prospects like Dennis Hill to be off the market 100%. You're not touching him. Easton Cowan, off the market 100%, you're not touching him. Fraser Minten, off the market 100%, you're not touching. Because you also have to think about the fact that like Leafs need those entry-level contracts, those low amount contracts, those, you know, cheaper contracts for next season, because the Leafs are going to be in like the 7th circle of cap hell with, you're paying still John Tavares $11 million 1 more year. Austin Matthews' new $13 million contract starts. William Nylander's $11 million contracts starts. Mitch Marner, you're still at 10, right? He's at 10 million. And then, you know, Morgan Riley's at 7. He's the cheap one, right? Like TJ Brody's still in there with 5, and you have, right? Like and then you also have to think about like there's guys who are UFAs or RFAs next year that you're going to want to hold on to. Benoit's one of those guys, I think, for sure. Like, the fan base loves him. He's been playing well. He hasn't been showing that he doesn't want to play and like doesn't deserve to keep his spot for next year. And so if you're rolling with, say, you know, Riley and competent right D, and then you're going Brody Liljegren, and then you go Benoit McCabe. That's the sides they play. That's a pretty solid blue line.
Yeah, it's like it's looking better than it was not very long ago. I'm getting a lot happier about just where everything's at, because it started to get really bad.
And then you got Mark, because we can't even forget about Mark Giordano. Mark, you've got Mark Giordano there as your seventh guy, and you have that flexibility with Lagesson and Timmins when he comes back from being sick with mono. But so, definitely you have, it's crowded kitchen for sure, but it looks good. Like
there's hope.
There's hope for sure, and the Leafs look a lot better than I think that what the standings show for sure. Right now. Joseph Woll update. Do you want to take the lead on this one? Because I'm sure you've watched his Marley's media availability about 7 times.
So many times.
Take it away. Take it away, Mar.
So yesterday afternoon, I'm gonna set the scene. I'm gonna paint a picture. I was sat in the library at uni. I was doing work. Well, I was attempting to do work. And all of a sudden, my phone lights up. And I go, I wonder, what wonderful news has Emma sent me? It wasn't Emma. No. It was Leaf PR. Yeah, and I'm saying, and so I was like, oh, Leafs PR. What's going on here? What's happened? Ooh, the drama. And then I read the words, Joseph Woll. And I don't even read the rest of the tweet. I see Joseph Woll and I nearly cry. Like, I just turned to my friend and went, Joseph Woll's back. And she goes, what? And she has to sit there and watch me try not to cry. Like, I'm not ashamed to admit there were tears in my eyes. I was very happy. So Joseph Woll has been sent to the Marlies for a conditioning stint, which
6 days or 3 games. Whatever comes first. And that is the length. Yeah. And then after that time span, he can submit a request to have extended by 2 more games. I did the research on that one for you.
Yeah, I have it written down, but I kind of like blacked out all of yesterday afternoon after this happened. Oh my god.
Yeah. Continue though. Like the gas that came out of my mouth when I saw that notification, inhuman. It was But go on.
I had to like deal with this news. I had to like process this news. Sat in a library.
Luckily, I was doing it from the comfort of my own home, so I was doing it right from this spot where I'm sitting right now because I was working. But continue. Sorry.
So yeah, he was at practice yesterday. I don't even know. I've still not fully processed the news. And by the way, the Marlies this weekend, mentors trip.
Yeah, mentors trip, back to back.
Back to back.
Friday, Saturday. So if you have nothing to do tomorrow, highly suggest tuning in for the Marlies game.
Absolutely.
They play Laval.
And I have never needed anything more than I need Joseph Woll and Kazimir Kaskazor to
play against each other. Leafs legend.
Like, not only Leafs legends, but best friends.
Yeah, they were really good friends when they were together with the Marlies, and then both of them were used as COVID call-ups, I would say, when, the playoffs were in the bubble in 2020. They both were there as sort of, a taxi squad, I think. I can't remember exactly what they called it. Was it like Leafs were allowed to have an extended roster of players as like a taxi COVID squad. I can't remember because the MLB was calling it a taxi squad. I think NHL had a different name for it. Essentially, it was all the same concept. It was just extra players you could carry in case one of your players got COVID and you had to rearrange and had to deal with it. But Timothy Liljegren was also another one of those players. But it's always fun. It's always fun to look back at as Kaz's vlogs from that. Essentially, it was like a week.
I love his vlogs so much.
There's a couple of Joseph Wool cameos in there.
If you can spot them.
If you can spot them.
Joseph Wool bingo.
Yeah, Joseph Wool bingo. Also, for those well-initiated, and that's also Kazuko is also the source of the original Joseph Wool piano video.
That he was. Which everyone knows the video. Everyone's seen it. It is burned into the back of
both of our retinas. Yeah.
Yeah, we see it when we sleep.
We do, but yeah, so that's sort of the lore there is they are quite good friends. They were a goalie, I think. Well, Marlies have more than they had, like at some points they have like 4 goalies rolling, but they were goalie partners or tandem or whatever you would call 4 goal, like with the Marlies as well. So yeah, just I want it. I want it for sure because
I need it.
I need it.
I need it like I need air.
Yeah.
I need to watch them play against each other.
Yeah. Sheldon Keefe did say that it's up to Joseph now at this point. It's up to Joseph Wool as to when he feels ready. It's not like the medical staff has very much been like, okay, so it's when you feel ready to come back and play. And according to him, Joseph, there was a media availability in the Marlies. They usually don't. They usually like don't post their media availability from like non-post game. They knew what they were doing when they posted this one.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
They were like, yes. There's a group of rabid Joseph Wool fans on Twitter who would absolutely love this.
Yeah, they were just sat there. They were like, oh god, Twitter user 60 Leafs would love this.
Post. Yeah, so Joseph Wool said, it's still up for decision, but then the coach of the Marlies said that he's expected to start one of the 2 games of this series, or at least, he's expected to start at least one of these games during his conditioning stint. So, hopefully he comes back soon. Maybe we'll see him before the end of the month. Who knows? Leafs have 2 games at home to end out February next week after returning from the road trip after playing Colorado. But maybe we'll probably see him, I guess, first week of March. Maybe the Leafs then have interesting decision to make when it comes to their goaltending, because do you carry 3 goalies? Do you have the cap space to carry 3 goalies? Do you waive Martin Jones? There's a chance you lose Martin Jones on waivers absolutely at this point in the season with the state of everyone's goaltending across the league, bar a couple of teams. But yeah, who knows? It's one of those things. But every Joseph Wool update so far has been a good Joseph Wool update.
Brilliant Joseph Wool updates.
So yeah, Leafs play the Golden Knights tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. It's a late game again, and then it's the last late game of the season, and then we're done. Then it's just 7 and 7:30 from here on out. It's peaceful. We love that. Jones is expected to get the start, like I said. Riley is going to return to the lineup post-suspension. Interesting to see what Sheldon Keefe does in terms of if you break up Brody Liljegren, or do you do a Riley and Lajoie, or right? And you have that, or what do you do? It's interesting. We'll see. it does very much say like, hey, look, like the Leafs blue line isn't as bad as you think it is. You just can't put Morgan Rielly and TJ Brody together. You put TJ Brody with Timothy Logan. Like it's a simple solution with, I feel like, a very complicated, like it's a simple answer that has a complicated solution, I think, because trading for a top pair right D is going to not be cheap.
No.
Leafs are 6-3-1 versus Vegas. They've lost the last couple, however. Also as well, like former Leafs legends. We've got a couple of Leafs legends in the lineup as well. Ben Hutton, close personal friend of mine, Ben Hutton.
Your bestie.
I'm like 4 degrees separated from, but like close personal friend Ben. Ben Hutton, as well as Michael Amadio, are both on the Vegas Golden Knights. Will we see goals from at least one of them? Odds are probably yes. Vegas is, however, without Jack Eichel due to injury. He's on long-term injury reserve with, I don't even know what it is, lower body, back, neck, something. And then also, it was announced that Mark Stone is injured as well and will be week to week. So we will see those guys with like 1 week left before the playoffs start. Can call it now. I think that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So
that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
Oh well. Like and everyone thinks that the Leafs are guilty of using LTAR to circumvent the cap. Sorry, Matt Murray can't walk anymore. Like
yeah, it's how the cookie very, very conveniently crumbles.
Yeah. And then Leafs on Saturday, because we won't record before Saturday's game. Leafs take on Colorado. That'll be a fun one.
Yay!
In Colorado as well.
Joy.
I'm honestly expecting to lose that game. Like I had that game. That's one of those games where it's like I looked at the schedule when I like flipped over my calendar this month and I was like, okay, loss. Scheduled loss right there. Also this one as well. I will be pleasantly surprised if the Leafs win this game because Vegas.
Yeah. I think that's another reason I'm very glad, because I'm not doing a repeat of last night where I stayed to watch a game that started at 3 a.m.
Yeah, it's the fact that the 10 p.m. games are back to back that I'm like, this is not fun.
No, like at 3 a.m. when the puck drops, I will be tucked up in bed, happily dreaming in a world where the Leafs don't exist and I don't have to think about them losing.
Yeah, I will be awake and watching the game because one of us has to.
Yeah, I physically don't think I can handle another day where I go to sleep at 6 a.m.
Oh my god, no! Like I went to sleep at like 1:30 and I had to wake up at 6:30 for work, and I was like, this is not fun. Did not make my lunch. I went to my like favorite coffee shop that's by the office and I got myself a nice my favorite sandwich from there. It's like anyways, I'm not gonna go on and talk about the
politics of Emma sandwiches.
No, there's this coffee shop that's right by my office and I almost want to shout them out, but also at the same time I don't really want to like almost dox where I work.
Yeah, you'll have me just like turning up next time you're in. Like,
you know what? Maybe I'll
walking around. Like,
maybe I'll give them a shout out like when I'm done this internship, and then I won't be working at the office anymore. So I can be like, yeah, but it's this like roasted chicken like panini, and it's got like sun dried. I don't think they're sun dried. They're not sun dried tomatoes, but it's got like roasted peppers, and it's got tomatoes on it, and it's got I think arugula, some sort of green leafy vegetable, and like goat's cheese, and then it's a panini press. It's on the best bun, like best bread I've ever had in my entire life. Oh, it's so good. It's my favorite sandwich. And it's like it's so good. I have it way too often. I'm there. They also, because they have a coffee punch card. So I go and I get my coffee and I get my sandwich. And then I have like, my second coffee of the day and I get my little coffee punch card stamped. And, by the time I'm done this internship, I'll get a free coffee.
Yeah, that's exactly how it rolls with me. I go to uni every morning and I go to the little cafe in the students' union and I get out my little loyalty card.
Yeah.
And I go, 1 coffee, please. And then they give me a stamp and I feel happy.
Yeah. It's nice too because I don't know. It's nice. Yeah. We're gonna talk Penguins. Actually, no, before we switch totally to totally different team, do you know what today's anniversary is?
What day is it?
The 22nd of February. What happened 4 years ago today?
Hit me. I'm not functioning today.
4 years ago today, the Leafs lost a game against the Carolina Hurricanes, in which the winning goaltender of the game was an e-bug who was a 42-year-old Zamboni driver who worked for them.
4 years. Damn, bro.
Oh, how the time flies, eh? David Ayres. It's the anniversary of the David Ayres game. I think, and then what happens a month later? COVID happens, everything shuts down, and I think honestly that we can talk about how whatever the impact that had on the Leafs organization. I think COVID happening almost saved this Leafs core. Because honestly, yeah, the Leafs then, lost in the preliminary rounds to Columbus in the bubble, but the Leafs didn't really 1920 was not a great season for them.
No. It was a time.
It was a time for sure, and I think definitely we could have seen some big surprising trades happen, and the way the team looks could have been different. But here we are 4 years later, and it's one of those things where it's like, hey, remember that time? It's like a twisted trivia question.
No, so yeah, anniversary of that. I can't wait for tonight's game to happen.
Oh, absolutely. But we're gonna now switch gears and we're gonna talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins. Kyle Dubas yesterday hosted a press conference to discuss prior to the trade deadline. I don't know what he purely was there to discuss. I think it was just an opportunity for the media to ask him questions before the trade deadline. Definitely answer some questions in regards to Jake Guentzel, who is currently injured, who's expected to come back like a week after the trade deadline, which is very interesting. But he answered some questions regarding Jake Guentzel, and Jake Guentzel is currently injured, expected to return. His expected return is after the trade deadline, like I said. And Kyle Dubas had a very interesting quote that I have the full thing right here. This is via Penn's Inside Scoop, which is essentially they're just like their team reporter. But here's a direct quote in regards to Jake Guentzel's future with the Penguins. I'm going to read it, and then we're going to have the fun little game of, hey, what does this mean to the guys in the locker room? It's obviously that one that's at the forefront. He's injured now, obviously on injured reserve, and he's eligible to come back on March 10th. I think the way that our whole strategy plays out in the next 2.5 weeks, how our team continues to play will dictate the short-term answer at the trade deadline. We'll continue to have those discussions leading up to that, and then afterwards with where it's at. But I would say I understand how valuable he's been as a teammate, a person in the community, contributor to helping the team win the Stanley Cup, and so on and so forth. So it's important, but at the same time, we have to take stock of where we are at and be realistic of the fact that one of the issues we have is we need to get younger. We have a lot of guys in their 30s signed. Some of them are some of the best players in the history of the franchise. It's tough with Jake, as I've said to him, because he's an excellent player and playing at an elite level. But we have to find a way to continue to have those solid veteran guys, but also to continue to get younger at the same time. That is the most Kyle Dubas quote I've ever heard in my entire life. He has a manner of speaking that is indistinguishable.
Yeah, like you could read that out to me and say, right, who do you think said this? And I'd be like, well.
Yeah.
Here's your answer.
Like, I could probably have read, you know what I mean? Like, if you blacked out those names, you blacked out whatever names, and you're just like, which NHL GM said this?
It's like little old Kyle.
That's Kyle Dubas. And I think as Leafs fans, we know more about his way of speaking than anyone else. So I want to ask you, what do you think that's telling the guys in the locker room? That statement, because I'm sure they're seeing this, they hear it, obviously. So what do you think they're probably going to be? They probably will get asked about it.
Yeah.
What do you think it's?
To me, as someone who hasn't had a chance to really look at this yet because I was busy cooking my dinner when you thought I was napping, it's very much like Kyle just been like, in the nicest way possible, guys, I love you, but if you want to play for this team, you have to make it work. And
Yeah.
it's very much the most Kyle Dubas way of saying, sort yourselves out, get a grip,
or the blonde one goes
and win. Because if not, the blonde one gets it.
The blonde one right? Like, yeah, that is what he's saying. He essentially is telling those guys in the locker room, hey, get your shit together, play better, or I will have to start selling. And the rebuild is going to happen whether you want it to or not. Because the thing you have to also think about is, like, it's difficult to it's difficult with the way the Pittsburgh Penguins are constructed. It's the scary thing is the current Pittsburgh Penguins are like a little glimpse into the Leafs' future.
Yeah.
Right?
Very much.
Yeah. Because the thing is like, you have, Sidney Crosby, and he's getting older. He's 36, but he's still also the team leader in goals. Because of course he is. He's Sidney Crosby, but like, it's, when your core is, Malkin, Crosby, and Letang, and now Carlson, and they're all older, and you have to build younger pieces around that. It's hard to do that if you you have to, you know what I mean? Like, you can't commit to a rebuild if you want to still win with guys like this, right? Like, if you want to do a true last dance sort of thing and make another cup run, and you want to do it with these 4 core guys. I know Erik Karlsson wasn't always part of the core, but that's why he's in Pittsburgh. You can't, you know what I mean? Like, you have to, you know what I mean? Like, you have to make every other piece around this team younger and also and better, because I don't know what your thoughts were about the Pittsburgh Penguins going into the season. I think a lot of people doubted that they'd be able to do a cup run.
Yeah. It was very much, for me, I was like, I so badly want to see them do a cup run. But whether that's achievable and whether it's going to happen is a whole other question.
Yeah. Like, one of the things is, like, okay, obviously, guys like Sidney Crosby, they want to win another cup. Like, those guys do, that they do want to win a cup. Or if you're Erik Karlsson, he wants to win one. He doesn't have one. But the additions that they made in the offseason, the ceiling of value that they had to add to the team were only so high.
Yeah.
They weren't high enough to provide a true impact.
Like, it was very much like, here's
Noel
what you've got to work with.
Here's Noel Achari, and here's Erik Karlsson.
Do with it. And in a way, it was kind of like, we're gonna give you this. We don't know how, like, it could work really well. But that's down to you guys as players, not to figure it out, but to try and to show just how, like, you want a cup run. Here's what you've got to make that happen.
Yeah. And, like, you have to also think about it. It's like the issues with the Pittsburgh Penguins are very, very interesting. And I have some fun little stats to throw at you that I think you're going to like. But, like, the true question at the end of the day when it comes to the Pittsburgh Penguins is, do you call it quits? Like, do you pull the plug on the whole team as it is? And you totally blow it all up like Kyle Dubas was implying that he may have wanted to do in Toronto before he got fired, and implode the core four that it is now core three. Trade you're trading guys away. You even approach Crosby with a trade, right? Like, does he go and play somewhere else to finish off his career, which is a crazy thing to even picture, which you don't even think is like, right? You think about like who Crosby has talking in his ear his entire career is Mario Lemieux, who played his entire career with Pittsburgh Penguins and now is part ownership of the team, like, right?
Yeah.
Do you fully commit to a rebuild, or do you retool around this core and you try to make this core work for the Pittsburgh Penguins? That's the question at the end of the day, and that's the question that Kyle Dubas is facing. And that's the question that Kyle Dubas was facing when he got the job back during the summer.
Yeah.
Right? So to throw some stats at you, in their last 10, Pittsburgh is 3-5-2. They lost on the Jaromir Jagr night, which I think is off. Like, that's a game you want to win, right? Yeah. And you should have that extra, like, it's not just a regular season game, so you should have that extra internal motivation to win, and you still lose. Yeah. They're 7th currently in the Metro. They're only ahead of the Columbus Blue Jackets, which if you were behind Columbus, then you have big issues. And they're 8 points out of a wild card spot. And the teams that they're behind for that, the teams, I'm just pulling up the standings now. I thought I had this tab open, but the teams that they are currently behind in the wild card spot to reach wild card spot is to get to Detroit's 64. They have to be better than Detroit. Or Tampa. They have to be better than the New Jersey Devils. They have to be better than the New York Islanders, and they have to be better than the Washington Capitals. Are the Pittsburgh Penguins, as constructed right now, better than Washington? Potentially. Yeah. Right? Potentially. Washington's only 2 points up and they have a game on Pittsburgh, right? So potentially. Are the Pittsburgh Penguins better than the New York Islanders? No. Are the Pittsburgh Penguins better than the New Jersey Devils? No. Are the Pittsburgh better than Detroit? No. Are they better than Tampa? No. Right? Like, that's the thing. It's like you look at, like, the only team that Pittsburgh potentially could be better than is Washington, and that does not get them anywhere close to a playoff spot. No. Right? As is. Of course, obviously, there's still time towards the deadline. There's 2 weeks. Trades can be made, and you can make the team better. So, also as well, like, Sidney Crosby is still leading your team in points and goals. Yeah. Get it together. If Sidney Crosby, of course, you know what I mean? Like, Sidney Crosby is Sidney Crosby. He's a hockey god. He's an enigma. Like, whatever. Like, he'll never ages.
But also, at the same time, if a 36-year-old is leading...
If 30 is leading your team in goals and points, you have an issue.
Yeah.
There's an issue there with your team.
Like, you can't have a 36-year-old leading the team in goals and points and also want to make a cup run?
Also, as well, the team has been underwhelming, but also their goaltending stats are great. You would think, okay, so what's the issue for Pittsburgh? Maybe it's goal. It's not goaltending. Goaltending is not a problem for this team. Tristan Jarry, in 36 games, has a save percentage of .914. Nedeljkovic in 19 games has the same percentage of .915. Guess how many shutouts this season the Pittsburgh Penguins have? Throw out a number. How many do you think?
Like, what, 2?
7. You want to know where that puts them in the league ranking?
Hit me.
That leads the league in shutouts. Across the team. They have more shutouts than every other team. But some of the teams that are up there, Boston only has 3. New York only has 3. Vancouver has 6. And you think about the goaltending that those 3 teams have been getting. Toronto has 4.
Yeah.
But think about the goaltending that Boston is getting from Allmark and Swayman. Think about the goaltending that New York Rangers are getting from Shesterkin and Quick. Think about the goaltending that Vancouver is getting from Demko, because DeSmith has been shaky most nights. So Jarry, is right, so it's not, your goaltending's not your issue. In fact, you have the goaltending to support a very competitive team, but everything else is missing.
Yeah. And
everything else
on goaltending alone.
Unfortunately, Jarry has only scored 1 goal this season. That doesn't do you much help. I'm sorry. As much as you think goaltending can, help you win a Stanley Cup, which it can, you can't win a Stanley Cup without goaltending, but also you can't win a Stanley Cup only on goaltending, because, Tristan Jarry is not scoring you 75 goals like Austin Matthews can do for Toronto. He's only scored 1.
There's still time.
There's still time. You do have to, a big problem for Pittsburgh, obviously, and I think this has been the conversation all season, is the power play. Is that a coaching issue? Kyle Dubas has been very supportive of Mike Sullivan and has said that he puts a lot of trust in him and that he's not going anywhere, that he's going to stay the head coach of the team. But is it a coaching is it a coaching problem, or is it it's because it can't necessarily be 100% a player issue, because last year the Pens, their power play was average. It was just above, by a decimal of a percentage above league average, but still at league average, you'd say. And now it's worse. Now I know the coaching hasn't changed, and there has been some changes to the players that, but Erik Karlsson should only be an addition on your power play. Right?
Yeah. It's you've got Erik Karlsson. How have you got worse? How has it got worse?
Oh. Yeah. The guys who are playing on the power play for Pittsburgh are not that much different than the guys who were playing. I'm looking, and I'm like, no, the guys, not that much different, no. So I'm just trying to compare the names, and it's sorry, I'm looking at Hockey Reference, and I'm scrolling through it. I'm like, it's not that, it's their power plays not that different. No, because like even Ryan Graves is not getting. Literally, the only thing is that you have Erik Karlsson on there.
And that should not make you worse.
That should not make you worse. You know, does it make you better necessarily? That's questionable, but it's not going to make you worse. So, you know, obviously, I think, you know, the blood was in the water last season. Like the warning signs were there last year.
Yeah.
I said this on Twitter, but not Leafs. Ben's only got one hat trick last year. Came from Leafs legend, Kasper Kapanen. They also only have one hat trick so far this season, comes from Sidney Crosby. Do you pull a plug now, or do you wait until, or do you wait until, you know, Crosby's done, Malkin's done, Letang's done, career-wise, or with the team, they choose to go somewhere else. Unlikely, but, and then do you start the rebuild? Like, you don't want to do that. Not if you're Kyle Dubas trying to keep your job. You can't say, oh, we'll wait out the end of Sidney Crosby's career, be a mediocre team at best, and then commit to the rebuild. Like you can't do that, especially when you're getting like, you can't. I just at this point, like, you know, we love goalies on the show. You can't waste these goalies.
No,
you can't. This goaltending is going to waste.
Like you have, like it's not even like yeah, okay. You like, obviously you don't want to lose Crosby, you don't want to lose the car, but at the same time, at what cost are you going to keep them around? At what cost are you just going to continue to have a team that is, in the nicest way possible, just really miserable to watch?
Yeah. Pittsburgh this season right now is only at 2.89 goals per game, which ranks them 25th in the league. But like Kyle Dubas, like, is no stranger to this. Obviously, he was hired because he had a plan.
Yeah.
And also as well, like, is no stranger to a team like this. He was involved in the Leafs organization in 2014 when the Leafs were coming off of a surprise playoff appearance. 2013, as much as I say it gives me like emotional trauma, the Leafs making the playoffs that season was a surprise. They weren't really expected to. So, you know, say what you will about, as much as I say, you know, that playoff series gave me trust issues.
At least they made it.
At least they, right? Like, it's not like we were expecting that, like, not going into that season, we were expecting them to, like, make a huge, massive cup run. Not with that lineup. You look at it, you're like,
I think,
but
that's the thing with, like, the Pens at the moment. Like, it'd be a completely different situation if it looked like they had, like, even a chance at making the playoffs. But, like, if you carry on with a team like this, in this way, and you're like, yeah, we want, you know, one final cup run before we lose, you know, Crosby, like, Malkin, the court, like, if they actually had a chance at making the playoffs, and if they had a chance at going anywhere with it, it would be a completely different conversation of, yeah, okay, how do we do this? How do we make the team better? But at this point, it's very much a situation of, how do we get through the rest of the season?
Yeah. Because, like, you have to, so just to throw it out there, Sidney Crosby, 36, is a UFA in 2 seasons, 25-26. So he has this season and then another season left at his contract at 8.7, which even at 36 is a steal for Sidney Crosby. Malkin is UFA 26-27, so he's got 2 more years after this one left on his contract that he signed for this season, if I remember correctly, or 2 seasons ago. And there was that whole big dispute of if he will come back. Chris Letang is signed for the longest. He is signed until 28, 29. So he is signed until age 40. Chris Letang at 6.1. Erik Karlsson, surprisingly, is the highest paid player on this team.
Jesus.
At 10 million. And he is signed until 27, 28. And he also is only 33. Which, you know, a team is old when we're referring to them as only 30. When we're referring to a player as only 33.
Yeah, like, oh, he's only 33? Wow. And it's like
the youngest, this is such an old team. I'm sorry. The youngest player on this team is John Ludvig. He's 23. Youngest player on the team. But like, that's the thing, is this team has to be younger. And like, you have 4 guys locked down who you're like, I want to build a team around them, but they're too old. So you have to make the team young.
It's like you want to make, they keep saying, oh, you know, we want to build a team around this car. One last push. And it's like, well, okay, do it then. Build a team around them that can be successful, because at the moment you're not. You're doing a really shit job at that.
And also, sorry, no offense, but 32-year-old Noel Acciari and 33-year-old Erik Karlsson are not what's going to turn it over for this team. Also, 25-year-old Jesse Puljujarvi. Still, that's not what's going to turn your team. That's not going to change your team.
No, like, you have to fully commit to, like,
we want to build. It's not
a winning team around the car. Okay, go out there and build a winning team.
And now some could argue being
bringing a few young guys.
And now some could argue and be like, well, you know, Kyle Dubas, he came into the Pens organization late into the off season. You know, he only, you know, it was after the Leafs got knocked out of playoffs that he then got fired. Like, and then it was only like 5 weeks until, you know, the draft, and then free agency, and then, you know, and then he didn't have enough time. So make a trade. Like, you're allowed to do that now. That's something you can do for another 2 weeks, is make a trade. There's been none of that. Yeah. It's very interesting just to see Kyle Dubas in a situation that is just very much the Leafs' future at this point. Like, that's the thing that where it's like, I'm sitting here looking at the Pittsburgh Penguins, and unfortunately, with the way that the Leafs are built, this could potentially become the Leafs' future.
Oh God, don't say that. All
right. But because you look at, like, as much as we celebrate, you know, these Leaf for life contracts, this team has to get younger too, and we can't stick with this roster forever, because
yes, we can. I don't like change. I don't want any of it to change.
Sports is the wrong hobby for you. You don't like change.
Why do I do this to myself?
I got one more story. I'm gonna throw this in on the end, just because I want to talk about it. Just because I'm sure Marcie has seen some of it on Twitter, as of within the past half week or so. It's not really hockey related, so you can breathe a sigh of relief. I saw your you're turning up. I was like, you're like running through. I'm like, what? And I could see your gears turning in your brain of like, what story have I been missing this whole time? It's not hockey related. Well, it's kind of hockey, but it's mostly related to MLB and baseball. You know, yeah. So for those who follow baseball, I feel like we have a couple people who do, or at least exist on Twitter, because I feel like that's all of our listeners, but except for my parents, but they follow baseball anyways. It's fine. Fanatics has taken over as the main uniform distributor or sponsor / manufacturer for the MLB for this season. And oh boy. Now there's been already a lot of huge complaints from fans from the towards this, because all of the jerseys, even like in certain things, like they always used to be stitched on. They were patches that were stitched on to the jersey, right? And I love that. You know, I have a Jose Bautista jersey that I've had since elementary school that's all stitched on, and it's still in great condition, and I've worn it to basically every single Blue Jays game I've been to, which is multiple a season. And they've now changed it where all of the lettering, even the team logo and everything, not just the player lettering on the back, is now all iron-on transfers.
Oh, yay.
The material is awful. They've changed the position of the letters. The letters and the numbers on the back are smaller. They're like curved around. It's almost like it's like, oh, if you have a long enough name, you may end up in a full circle around your number. Like, they're bad. If you haven't seen pictures, go look up pictures. It just looks awful. I've heard like players are complaining about the material because it's so thin, and it's now the true conversation, and I think the true part of all of this that's been in conversation for the past I think this week at least, has been the pants. Spring training has started for baseball this week, and you know, the teams are back in training camps and things like that this week, and players are now putting on this uniform, and they're doing a lot of media stuff and taking pictures and things like that. And we're starting to now see pictures released of the uniforms, the full uniforms, not just the jerseys that fans have been buying, the full uniforms, including the pants. And boy, are they thin.
Oh boy.
Every single team in the major, each of the 30 teams has at least a pair, like has a uniform, because I think like some teams have up to like 4 uniforms. Like the Blue Jays this year, I think, will have 5 different versions of uniforms that they will be wearing on the field. They have their home, they might be up to 6. They have their home white on whites. They have their home white on blues. They have their away grays. They have their special red jerseys that they wear on Canada Day, and then one other game somewhere in there, a couple other games. Then they have their powder blues, which unfortunately have grown on me. I was really against the Blue Jays powder blues, and then this year they're also getting a City Connects jersey. So that's like 6 jerseys. Ridiculous number of jerseys. Which is so different than the NHL, where they're like, you can get maybe 3 as a treat. That third one is a treat. Not every team will have 3 jerseys.
You just froze for like a good 20 seconds. I have absolutely no idea what you just said.
Well, I'm talking about how many number of like jerseys teams get in baseball in comparison to the NHL. But every team will have a uniform that involves white pants. Now, there's been these pictures that have come out of these players in their white pants, and they are so thin and see-through that when they tuck in their jerseys into their pants, which you have to do, like you have to do while playing, I think it's a rule, or at least it's like if it's not an official rule, it's an unwritten rule, and baseball is really anal about their unwritten rules. You can read the like Fanatics label, you know how they have those labels at the bottom hem on the side.
Those labels.
You can read that label. You can read that label through the pants. It's a little black label, and you can read it like reading, you know, reading through parchment paper. Essentially, it's like tissue paper pants. Like, they're awful. And the reason why I bring this up, not just to talk about the fact that like there was a picture where you could there was a promo picture put out by the Giants in which you could literally, a player was sitting down and had his leg propped up, and you could see they were so thin, you could see the player's balls through his pants.
Oh no! Oh god.
It's out there still, like they're so thin. Like most MLB players will wear sliding shorts for when they slide. So are you looking it up?
No. Why would I do that?
Let the record show that Marcie is now on her phone. But it's the San Francisco Giants, by the way. And they will wear sliding shorts, right? Underneath, and you can see the sliding shorts. Like they'll be black or whatever, and you can see the sliding shorts through the pants. You can see the outline of the Nike logo. You can see where their shirt tails end inside their pants when they tuck their shirts in. And it's only gonna, like, you're gonna be like, well, maybe they look really good, like, in person. I'm sorry, there's 162 games a year. Your team plays 81 home games. Unless you are a diehard fan who has season tickets, you are not going to see your team in person every single game. You're right, like, most people will be watching probably most, if not all of their team's games on TV. And if they look bad on camera, they're going to look bad when it's a full sunny day and they've got the light shining through them and there's an 4K HD camera trained on them. I'm just waiting for the first rain game, honestly, because they're all wearing white. They all wear white a lot, and it's going to rain, and you're going to see everything. And the reason why I bring this up, because of the awful quality that players are complaining about, that fans are complaining about, that they're so bad that I think someone posted on Twitter, like, complaining about the quality of the jerseys. And the Fanatics support team replied to it thinking that it was, like, a mistake. You know how they do, like, hey, reach out to our customer support team to help you fix this mistake with your jersey. Let's see what we can do to help. They replied to, and it was a player's jersey that he got from the locker room, and he was like, look how bad this is. And Fanatics replied to that, be like, hey, let us help you out. This is what you gave them. Like, MLB, God. I think, has to do something, because it's not just like the fans complaining about the fact that they now no longer can buy sewn on jerseys, like with sewn on, like, jerseys with the patches and the lettering and everything sewn on. You can only, like, give that. They don't make those jerseys anymore. You can't, like, the fans, it's not just fans, it's also the players who are like, this sucks.
Like, yeah. It's like, I can't imagine there's many players who are just gonna, like, happily play a full season with their balls essentially on show.
Oh yeah, like, you have to, like, pay attention. You have to pay attention to, like, what underwear you're wearing on a given day.
But like, the thing is, like, what if some of them have, like, lucky underwear? That's like, because they will.
Are you implying? I'm sure this is a thing. I don't really know the inner word. I'm sure there is some player that is as anal about his underwear as Sidney Crosby is about his jockstrap.
Oh god.
And because also think about it, MLB players play 162 games a season. Like, I just threw up in my mouth about that, thinking about that. But also, if you think about it, like, the reason for the thinner material, what Fanatics is saying, is like, it's performance-based, it's going to be lighter on the players, it's going to be, it's not going to be as heavy, it's not going to be as warm, it's going to allow the players to be cooler while they play on the field. But most players, all players, I think, no one's going, like, bare-chested underneath their jersey. They're all wearing some form of dry fit Under Armour, I guess, underneath it, right? No one's going bare chest under their jersey, for the most part. So, like, they already have something sweat wicking there.
Yeah, because it's like, as well, they're like I, don't really follow baseball. I
think you should. I think you love the fact that there's a lot of games during the day.
When I've got nothing better to do. But it's like, so I don't know. I mean, not like when I've not got anything better to do, but, like, if I've got nothing else, if I'm not doing anything and I see there's a game on, I will watch it. But it's like, so obviously I don't know the ins and outs of everyone's opinions on like the jerseys and stuff, but it's like they're like, oh yeah, this is gonna be like lightweight, breathable, like so much better for you. Was anyone complaining about it? Like,
Yeah,
was it an issue that needed to be fixed? That's what I want to
know, is if there was like, if they did a player survey, Fanatics did a player survey, and a majority of the players said the jerseys are too heavy. I also like think about, like, I'm thinking about it too. I'm like, I know you're thinking in theory, you're like, oh, it's gonna be really nice for those, like, you know, dog days of summer, those like July, Sunday, 1 p.m. games where it's like 30 degrees out and the players are sweating because they're standing in the sun because most of the teams play outside. I'm also thinking about like the fact that most games are happening at like a lot of games during the week. Most games that they'll play will be happening at like 7 p.m. for the most part. At least that's what I take from, you know, the Blue Jays schedule every year, is most of their games are at 7 p.m. during the middle of the week. It's going to be cooler also as well, like cooler because it's at night.
Yeah.
Like I would love to know if they went to the players and were like, hey, what do you think we could change about the jerseys? And the players were like, make them lighter because we get really hot. But I don't think that was ever the case. I don't know. Like, I've sat in seats in a jersey and been like in a player on-field quality jersey, because the one Jose Bautista jersey I have from when I was in elementary school, we've got it in a silent auction fundraiser at my elementary school, and it's like player quality, like it's like on-field quality. Is actually quite comfortable, and I never find that I'm too sweaty in it when I'm sitting in plastic seats, not even like not moving, like not in the shade, watching a Jays game. And like the thing is I don't have one of the new jerseys on hand for me to feel the difference, but like last year me and my mom went to a giveaway day for like a free George Springer jersey, and from like just like the look, the free George Springer jersey that I got for free for just going to a game, like we didn't even pay for our tickets. My mom got given them from like whatever bosses at work, so we didn't even pay for the tickets, like just perfectly free jersey, seems to be nicer quality than what the players are wearing on the field this season.
Oh God.
Which is horrifying. And I think why I brought this up on a hockey podcast is because next year, for the 24-25 season, Fanatics is taking over from Adidas to provide the jerseys for the NHL. All the jerseys. Fanatics already does some fan quality jerseys, you know, you have your pro Adidas jerseys, and then you have your Fanatics ones, and the Fanatics ones are just lower in quality and lower in what you get with them. But so Fanatics is taking over the NHL. So I'm thinking like, so first of all, if you are considering about getting a jersey and you're like, do I wait? Do I do it now? And you want to at least guarantee the quality of a nice jersey, do it now. Get yourself an Adidas jersey of your favorite player. It's well worth it. They're great. I own multiple. Got 3 on my wall that I'm looking up at. All of my jerseys are Adidas jerseys because I actually have deep fear of the Fanatics.
Yeah, I've experienced Fanatics jerseys. Yeah.
Like if the Fanatics jerseys that you're getting are going to be anywhere close to what the players are getting, like the players should be worried, especially like if you look at the MLB jerseys and you look just how thin they are. And if Fanatics is like, well, if we do lighter hockey jersey, it's more breathable and they sweat less, and then they're not as sweaty and gross, and you know they're lighter material, more breathable, whatever, blah 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 blah. Which I don't know if they will, because they're like, but it's cold, so we could just not do that. But they could. And you think about how see-through the pants are. Every team has a white away jersey. Right? The aways are right? They wear white, right? I just gotta make sure. Yeah. Every team in the NHL, you know, the 32 teams, except for anyways, I don't want to say like, except for Seattle, because I'm not. Anyway, but they all have white jerseys. Can you imagine if those white jerseys were see-through to the point where we could tell what brand of shoulder pads they were wearing underneath?
Oh.
Right? Like, and I think, and it's also, it's a 10-year deal. So we're going to, like, as fans, especially if we want to buy a jersey of our favorite player,
it's like,
it's a thing where, like, I don't buy a new jersey for 10 years. And then the 10 years are over and someone new, like Adidas comes back and I'm like buying like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a young prospect or something or other. Like, no, here we go. And I'm buying like, say Easton Cowan turns out to be a superstar. I'm buying like Easton Cowan jersey like 10 years after, or you're like, right? And it's definitely something for sure that I think NHL fans should be worried about. Like, if you don't follow baseball at all and you're like, why did you just spend, like 30 minutes talking about baseball jerseys? It does concern you because Fanatics is also going to be producing hockey jerseys. And if they're any, if the MLB this year is any indication of what it could be like and what we could be getting, it's be nervous.
Not good.
Yeah, be nervous because I like my Adidas jerseys. And
yeah, because I have a few Fanatics jerseys and oh boy, it's definitely a jersey.
I mean, by definition, it's a jersey. Is it a good jersey? That's another question. Yeah, I think that's where we're going to end it here with that conversation. This is me slowly sneaking other sports into the show. F1 testing this week. Monday's episode, we will break down Drive to Survive seasons. And I will find a way. And I'll find a way to tie it back to hockey somehow.
Oh god. We do just like a full expansion, like from the fourth line, right? New
from the 20th row on the grid, from the 10th row on the grid. Oh my god! From the bullpen or something. I think that's actually already a podcasting, but we just expand.
We branch out.
We do others, and it's just me talking, and then Marcie going like, "Yeah, I totally know what you're talking about, Emma."
I'm just like, I'm like, yeah, wow, so cool.
Could you? No, you could. You're friends with me and Cal. You could probably name at least one. Also, you're British as well. You could name at least one Formula One driver. That's a fun game. I'm taking away all of our summer ideas for what we're gonna do to fill summer episodes.
We have to keep ourselves busy somehow.
It's just, hey, Marcie, how many Formula One drivers can you name? You're British. They must be I don't know.
I don't think you understand just how little I have interacted in my life with anything F1.
But I feel like it's like shoved in your face no matter what. Like if you live in Toronto, it's like the Leafs are just there all the time.
It might be the case for like a lot of people, but it's not for me. No one in my family cares. None of my friends, you and Cal, are my only friends that actually like care. And it's like the thing is, it's like, oh, you like name like a British F1 driver, and I'll be sat there and I'm like, I know names. I fuck knows where they're from.
They could be soccer players or they could be F1 drivers.
Yeah, I just feel like it's one of them. They either drive or kick a ball around. So
they are. With that though, we're gonna end it here. I think this is actually gonna be a fairly long episode, but it's all right. Those are fun. We'll be back on Monday to discuss tonight's game, and then also as well to discuss Saturday's game against Colorado, and if Joseph Wool makes a return, we'll have a big episode to talk about all sorts of things.
We'll have little party poppers. I'll get a cake out.
Welcome back, Joseph. Welcome back, Joseph, on the game. Oh, don't test me because I've been craving cake. I have cheesecake in my fridge that I actually might have tonight.
No, because like tomorrow I could I'm going to the shop on my way back from uni. What if I buy a little like £3 cake, some little icing tubes? Welcome.
Joseph, watch him not even start this week. I don't know when the Marley's next. Anyways, besides the point. Thank you so much for listening. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts. You can follow the show on Twitter. We really love when you do. We don't tweet very much from that account. We probably should be doing it more. At From the Fourth Line, that's fourth with the number 4. You can follow me and Marcie on Twitter. We're really funny over there. I had a banger of a tweet today, actually, in which I implied I used a Glee quote in implication with the Philadelphia Flyers. It was great. I felt so funny about it. At 60 Leafs for Marcie, at Pair B1 for myself, and we will see you guys all on Monday. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Goodbye.